We often view the later seasons of life as a time of lessening, a slow fade towards an end. But I wish to share an insight into 9 pathways that can lead to a winter of the soul, a deep unease in what should be our years of harvest. If you find yourself walking even a few of these, your journey's final chapters may feel heavy and shadowed. Listen closely through to the end. The final insight is the most profound, a quiet dimming. When we observe many who have gathered years, a deep stillness pervades the spirit. We see souls who have navigated life's great river, collected vast experience, and passed through many seasons. Yet, they can often be found in a state of quiet retreat, as if the life force within them has become a mere trickle. The breath continues, but the engagement with life fades. They are present, but the spirit is no longer expanding. The deepest truth here is that this slow dimming of the inner light is not a decree of fate. It is a path shaped by choices, moment by moment, through patterns that obscure our own soul. The first pathway that darkens our later years is the carrying of old burdens. There are countless hearts that have become gardens where only bitter herbs grow. Old grievances, past pains, and sharp memories tended to with daily devotion. They recount tales of how life fell short of their expectations, how others disappointed them, how they were denied what they felt they would do. This narrative becomes their center, the main source of their energy, the very reason they rise each day. But this weight is an anchor that holds you in a storm that has long passed. Each day you choose to revisit these old wounds, you are choosing to stay bound to what was. You offer your freedom to figures from your memory, to chapters that are closed, to a heaviness that serves no purpose, but to cloud the light of your present moment. Those who carry this weight speak with a sharp edge. They find conflict in quiet rooms, and then they wonder why loved ones create distance, why companionship fades, why their closing years are filled with a profound sense of solitude. This pattern can diminish a life more thoroughly than any ailment of the body. The body may travel through time, but the spirit can get left behind, trapped beneath the weight of what it will not release. When you hold fast to these old stories, you are not affecting those who you feel have caused you pain. You are asking your own heart to bear the same heavy stone, day after day. You are choosing to replay the echoes of your deepest hurts, instead of composing new melodies of joy. You are permitting the past to cast a shadow over the light you have left. The path to release is not to deny that the hurts occurred. It is to understand that letting go is not about them. It is an act of liberation for yourself. It is the refusal to allow yesterday's storm to command today's inner sky. It is to choose the vastness of freedom over the tight, familiar grip of grievance, a chosen stillness. The second pathway to a shadowed later life is the gradual closing off from the world, a slow retreat into stillness. We see how individuals slowly pull back from life's river, from connection, from community. They may tell themselves they are seeking solitude, but what grows is a deep-seated loneliness. They convince themselves that others are a burden, that the dance of human connection requires too much effort, that it is simpler to be alone. This separation is rarely a sudden event. It starts with small decisions, turning down an invitation because it feels taxing, letting calls go unanswered because conversation feels draining, ceasing a cherished activity because it brings echoes of a younger, more vibrant time. Each small withdrawal feels logical in the moment. Yet, together they weave a cocoon that you believe is for protection, only to find it prevents the warmth of the sun from reaching you, keeping out not just complications, but also affection, support, and the very life energy that flows from genuine connection. We see people who can spend days in silence with no one to receive their thoughts, no one to notice their struggles, no one to share in the simple fact of their existence. They sit in spaces filled with echoes of loved ones who are no longer present, surrounded by images of gatherings they no longer join, slowly becoming transparent to the world long before the body finds its final rest. The sorrow here is that this isolation often springs from a shield of self-reliance. They say they do not wish to be a burden, but what they often fear is the vulnerability of being seen, of admitting that the fundamental human need for connection still beats within them, just as it did in their youth. And so, they choose the slow fade of solitude over the perceived risk of reaching out. But human beings are not meant for this isolation. We are like trees in a forest. We need the community of others to truly stand strong, no matter our age. Those who age with grace understand this. They tend to their relationships. They remain a part of their communities. They continue to offer the river of their wisdom to others. They know that the flow of giving and receiving is not a trifle, it is essential for the spirit's endurance. A stagnant mind. The third pathway is allowing the mind to become a still and murky pond, where fresh currents no longer flow. We see people who, upon retiring from work, also retired from learning. They cease to offer their minds new challenges, spending their days in passive observation, and then wonder why a sense of emptiness and mental fog descends upon them. The mind is a garden. If you cease to tend it, it will be reclaimed by old, familiar weeds. When you stop feeding it new light, new perspectives, new seeds of thought, it begins to turn in on itself, endlessly circling old beliefs, old patterns, and old limitations. You become mentally inflexible, unable to flow with change, unable to perceive new possibilities, unable to expand beyond the self you were many years ago. We have observed bright spirits become dim echoes of their former selves because they accepted the belief that growth belongs only to the young. They put down challenging books, they withdrew from expansive conversations, they stopped exploring new ideas or cultivating new understandings. They told themselves they were too old for new paths, too settled in their ways to change, too weary to think on deep things. And bit by bit, their own minds became their enclosures. The most vital elders are those who remain students of life until their very last breath. They may explore new interests, learn to navigate new technologies, engage with ideas that stretch their worldview, and enter into discussions that challenge their assumptions. They understand that the growth of the mind is not tied to age, it is tied to attitude, to curiosity, to the refusal to accept that your clearest seeing is behind you. When you keep your mind flowing and growing, you protect your sense of wonder, your ability to offer wisdom to the world, and your capacity for joy and discovery. You remain present and alive, not by chasing youth, but by committing to being fully awake at every age. Neglecting the vessel. The fourth pathway is to surrender the body to the winds of time without care. We see people who begin to treat their physical form like a worn-out tool, accepting discomfort, weakness, and constraint as the unavoidable toll of years. They reduce their movement, they stop tending to their strength, they neglect the physical vessel, and then feel puzzled when each day is a difficult negotiation with their own body. Your body is not a rival. It is your sacred partner in the journey of this life. It has carried you through all your seasons, adapted to endless challenges, and healed itself countless times. It deserves reverence and care, not resignation and neglect. When you forsake your body, you forsake your ability to engage with the fullness of life. The quiet truth is that much of what is called normal aging is actually the outcome of our daily choices, not a biological certainty. The stiffness, the loss of strength, the persistent aches that many accept as their fate, much of this can be eased, improved, or even kept at bay through consistent and mindful physical practice. There are those in their 8th decade who move with more freedom and vitality than some in their 5th. The difference is rarely genetics, it is daily practice. They chose to continue moving when it was easier to be still. They chose to preserve their energy when others chose only comfort. They chose to honor their bodies as the vessel worthy of care, not a burden to be carried. Physical well-being in later life is not about a contest with your younger self. It is about preserving the fundamental ability to live with autonomy, to interact with the world around you, to be of service, and to feel the simple grace of inhabiting a body that works in harmony with your spirit, abandoning contribution. The 5th pathway is the belief that to retire from a profession is to retire from meaningfulness itself. We witness countless souls who spend their lives building careers, honing skills, and gathering wisdom, only to set it all aside when they reach a number decided by society. They tell themselves they have earned a life of non-involvement, of contributing nothing, of no longer being essential to anyone. But human beings are not built for a vacuum of purpose. We are creatures who seek meaning, who need to feel that our existence has resonance, that we have a gift to offer that serves something beyond our own comfort. When you abandon your purpose, you sever the taproot that nourishes the will to live. We have seen formerly dynamic and accomplished people fall into a state of low spirit, anxiety, and physical decline soon after their work life ends. They have no reason to rise with the sun, no challenges to meet, no path to walk, no channel for their gifts to flow into the world. They believed they sought freedom from responsibility, but what they found was a void, an absence of meaning. The elders who flourish are those who see that their purpose evolves, but it never vanishes. They may no longer work for a wage, but they find new channels to serve, to guide, to create, to make a difference. They mentor the young. They offer their energy to causes they believe in. They create beauty. They share their stories, or they simply become fountains of wisdom and love for their families and communities. Purpose is not found in a career title. It is chosen through a conscious decision to remain part of life's flow, to continue expanding, and to keep offering your unique light to the world, regardless of your age or condition. Spiritual dryness. The sixth pathway is to face the great mystery of our finite existence with no inner anchor, no felt connection to that which is greater than our individual self. As the body's seasons change and worldly pleasures become less compelling, as companions and loved ones begin their own final journeys, as you face the undeniable truth that your time on this earth is limited, you need something far deeper than material wealth or physical ease to hold your spirit. We have seen many elders who spent their lives gathering things, titles, and experiences, only to find in their final chapters that none of these offer comfort when facing life's ultimate questions. Who am I beyond my roles and stories? What is the meaning of the life I have lived? What happens when this vessel can no longer hold me? How do I meet the great mystery without fear? Without a cultivated inner life, these questions become sources of deep unease, rather than invitations for profound peace. The elders who have neglected their inner world can become consumed by fear and regret, desperately trying to deny the natural truth of aging and change. They hold fast to illusions of youth, to possessions, to anything that distracts them from the spiritual dimension of their own being. But the elders who have tended to their inner garden, whether through a formal practice, meditation, contemplation, or simply a deep listening to life's rhythms, they approach their final years with a sense of wholeness. They understand they are a wave returning to the ocean, that their lives have meaning beyond their personal story, and that the end of the body is a transformation, not a failure. Cultivating this inner space is not about finding specific answers. It is about developing the inner capacity to meet life's ultimate invitations with courage, wisdom, and grace. Neglecting resources. The seventh pathway is a lack of mindfulness toward one's material resources, which can turn the harvest years into a long winter of dependency and constant unease. We have observed people who had a good flow of resources throughout their working lives, yet find themselves in a state of scarcity in old age, because they never learned the practice of planning for the seasons ahead. Financial well-being in your later years is not about accumulating great wealth. It is about having a sufficient foundation to preserve your dignity, your freedom, and your basic peace of mind when you no longer labor for an income. It is about not becoming a heavy stone for your children, not having to choose between medicine and nourishment, not living with a persistent hum of anxiety about your survival. The quiet truth is that preparing for our future needs is not a great mystery. It is a practice of discipline and foresight, qualities that the culture of immediacy does not encourage. People can spend many years being carried by the currents of the present moment, acquiring things they do not need with resources they do not truly have, assuring themselves that they will tend to the future later. But the future always arrives, and when it does, the consequences of a life without foresight become profoundly clear. The strain of material insecurity affects every corner of your life, your health, your connections, your inner peace, and your capacity to enjoy the time you have left. The elders who move through their final years with grace almost always share one thing: they learned early to live with intention, to save with consistency, and to plan for the seasons to come. They understood that while money is not the source of happiness, a foundation of peace is essential for a quiet mind. The final insight. The eighth pathway is to view the end of life as an adversary to be battled, rather than as a natural completion of the journey to be met with wisdom and presence. Our culture teaches us to turn away from this reality, to fight it at all costs, to see any recognition of our mortality as a surrender. But this turning away creates the very fear it seeks to avoid. When we work with those approaching this final threshold, it becomes clear that the ones who suffer most are not those whose bodies are failing. They are those whose spirits are unprepared for this natural dissolution. They have used so much energy avoiding the thought of their own ending that, when it becomes undeniable, they meet it with profound resistance and a deep sense of incompletion. And this leads to the ninth and most profound misstep, the one that sits at the root of a difficult old age. It is the refusal to accept that aging is not a process of becoming less than you were. It is a process of becoming more truly yourself than ever before. It is the culmination of all you have learned, all you have experienced, all you have become. It is your opportunity to embody the most essential wisdom of your life. When you struggle against the current of aging, instead of embracing it as your life's great masterpiece, when you cling to the shores of youth, instead of navigating the deep, magnificent waters of old age, when you see the lines on your face as signs of failure, instead of as a map of your journey, you miss the incredible beauty and power that comes from having lived a full life. The elders who truly inspire are not those who appear the youngest. They are those who wear their years with dignity, who have distilled their experience into wisdom, their wounds into strength, and their journey into a depth of presence that can only be earned by having truly and fully lived.